Mr. Asly, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. The Checkpoints is starting its new season. So what's new at this point, and do you believe that Georgia's economy has reached the boiling point and it's on the recovery track?
The economy is surviving. Many businesses are in a very difficult situation. Of course, all businesses that are linked to tourism and hotel business, they're struggling a lot. A lot of businesses are on the verge of bankruptcy, but they're not talking about it because they're scared to speak. Then the banks would be scared and their credit lines would stop. We are in a very, very difficult position. And the Prime Minister knows it very well, better than me, better than you, better than anyone else. They know where they are heading in spring. Once the vaccination wave will be over and people would calm down a little from the coronavirus, then they will wake up, like after being drunk, and they will realize in what difficult economic situation we are and where poverty has taken them. You know, more than 250,000 people have lost their jobs totally. Thousands of people have left Georgia to work abroad. Inflation is rampant. People cannot survive with their salaries anymore. So what economy and what boiling? No foreign, very little foreign investments, almost inexistent. Georgia is doing very bad foreign investment-wise compared to other countries.
So this two-digit economic growth in 6 months is not unprecedented growth for you?
Eleni, let's be pragmatic. Last year, we were on full lockdown. We had negative growth. What's a double-digit growth when we were in negative growth? It means absolutely nothing. We didn't even catch up. You know, if you have a pizzeria and you need to sell 100 pizzas a day to break even, and last year, because of the lockdown, you sold 10 pizzas, and this year you are selling 20 pizzas, you increase by 100%. So if the government was running the pizzeria, that would have made a big victory, that we increased by 100%, but we still need 80% to break even. And it's exactly the same with the economic growth.
So this is one point, the base effect. What about inflation? We often hear that inflation devours economic growth, whatever we have, but then the government says that this is an inaccurate judgment because the real growth excludes the effect of inflation.
Look, you know that Pikria, my cleaning lady, she knows more about inflation than the governor of the National Bank, the Minister of Finance, and the Prime Minister. Every day she comes crying that I used to buy the chicken at 15 lari, now it's 25. I used to buy the eggs at this price, I used to buy the, okay. Inflation eats economic growth. And once you calculate the economic growth, to assess your purchasing power, you have to remove the inflation out of it. The year before, because of the devaluation of the lari, because the lari devalued in 2020 and in 2019, the economic growth figures were still normal in 2019 and 2018 compared to the year before because of the devaluation of the lari. So in lari, we were showing economic growth. In dollar, we were not having any growth. Now the lari didn't devalue compared to last year, and now the reality is showing. Okay, that's why inflation is eating up, because it is catching up with the stabilization of the lari.
The volume of remittances that you also mentioned in Georgia in 7 months of 2021 is 2.5 times larger than the FDI for the whole 2020. What does this say about the state of Georgia's economy?
This means, first of all, that we had a very low FDI to start with. And then this means three things. It means that more people are leaving Georgia, young people, from the productive force of Georgia, the educated, the young, who can build the country. They're leaving, they're going abroad, and they're transferring money to their families. This is one. Two, you have about 250,000 people who lost their jobs. They're without income. So their relatives who are abroad are sending more money or sending money to them so they can survive. So that's why we have more money. Thirdly is inflation that we discussed. People cannot survive with their salaries anymore. If with 800 lari, a family of two people could more or less survive, now it's not enough. So they're asking their relatives abroad to bring money, to send them money. And this is not a positive sign when the remittances increases so much in such a short time. It means we are in a situation of crisis.
Yeah, it might have not been such a big problem if these people abroad had high wages, or, for example, they were employed at some, say, technology companies. Right, that's one part. And on the other side, we see that higher dependency on such transfers than in Georgia is only among the poorest countries, developing countries and post-Soviet countries. Can such growth be sustainable in the long run?
I'll tell you, as I mentioned it before in one of my posts, you know, a brain drain is the weapons of dictators and companies that control the power, the big companies, where the more young people leave between age of 22 and 40, the less people are voting. So they cannot vote for a change. So this gives the dictators more control over their country. So this is one point. The second point, the money that is transferred by those people to their families here is used by the families to pay for utilities, for medicines, for food, like the first necessities of any family. And usually in such countries, including in Georgia, this line of products are controlled by people who are close to the government, who are in the decision-making process. So it consolidates their power over the corrupt system. And this is a real problem.
What could change such a system?
You need a new government with a new mentality, with a new direction. You need to bring foreign investments in the country that create jobs. Otherwise, it will never change. And I will even give you a very updated example. You know that the Ministry of Interior has instructed Turkish Airlines to prohibit any Iranian from boarding their plane in Istanbul, which is a blanket cover over Iranians who are by law entitled to come to Georgia without visa, who are neighbors, who have money. A lot of them, you know, they are in the opposition to in their own country, and they want to escape and they want to invest in Georgia. So you cannot do this as a government. You cannot defraud the foreign investors. You cannot prohibit them from boarding planes, giving unofficial instructions to airlines, verbal instructions. They refuse to give written. I have all the documents. I have letters regarding this matter. So unless we have $4 or $5 billion of foreign investment, which is doable for Georgia, I mean, if it changes its policy, we can never create jobs.
Georgian Dream refused 75 million euro from the EU, stating that the economy needed no more debt in this situation, but we know in reality that it was EU that refused the loan to Georgia because the ruling party did not commit to the main and very important reform, and that's judicial reform. What implications might this have for Georgia?
Look, first of all, it was a big lie because, of course, as you said it's the EU who doesn't want to give the money, but the government were faster than the official statement of the EU, which was very childish and very unprofessional. So this is one. Then you cannot deal with the EU like someone would deal with their friends or with their neighbor or with their partner. This is the countries. It's the European Union or the United States. You don't humiliate your major partners. At a time you need them more than ever because we know how much money EBRD is putting in the country, how much money the European Investment Bank is putting in the country, and the German banks, and the EU as an institution, and humiliate them and showing them that you don't need the money, when 2 days later you receive $283 million loan from the IMF. So why didn't they refuse it? A small country like Georgia trying to humiliate the EU, I mean, what do you think, this will be forgotten? Of course not. Now, whenever Georgia will need the EU, they will smile very politely.
So you think that's what we get in 2024 when we apply for the membership, as the Prime Minister of Georgia says?
Listen, look, if they continue like this, my great-grandchildren would have died a long time before we become members of the EU, if we continue with those policies.
Since we mentioned IMF, do you think Georgia will get another IMF program, because that's what we are waiting for by the end of this year? Because if we look at this refusal, this means one thing is that we do not need debt, but also that indirectly means that we do not need any support in our reform agenda, right? And that's the whole mandate of the IMF.
Listen, let me tell you, I heard Irakli Kovzanadze, the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee in Parliament, in an interview with your TV, who was saying that it was their commission that identified the need to borrow those 150 million, and it was earmarked for the budget of this year and the budget of next year, and Georgia needs it. We borrowed more than 60% of our GDP, and we need to service the debt in a situation where we don't have FDI, where we only are surviving on borrowing foreign currency to stabilize our lari. This is what's happening. Exports that didn't increase that much to sustain the economy. What remains? Tourism this year will get 1/3 of what we got in 2019, which is not enough to sustain us, the balance of payment. So what are they going to do? They need to borrow money for it. And the only way would be to artificially sustain the lari, so the ratio of the GDP would increase, so they can borrow more money. So they will strengthen the lari, so in dollar, we can borrow more money. So probably this is the strategy that they will be following.
Do you, as a businessman, as the head of the International Chamber of Commerce, feel at ease in Georgia? Because that's what PM said, that he is proud that the business community is calming down.
Listen, maybe he's speaking to the businesses that are partners with them, but he's definitely not speaking for the business community at large. To give you an idea, in the first quarter of 2021, greenfield FDI decreased in Georgia by 85%, at a time the world average is 33%, and the 85% are the highest by far figure of the whole region, and one of the worst figures among the 190 countries that are assessed by the World Bank. This means that no one is starting new investments in Georgia.